When I was in college, I had two objectives. Number one, to finish, and number two, to find a girl. So my junior year, I was in this family and marriage class, coincidentally, and there's this attractive girl named Megan. She sat near the front of the class because she's a good student, and I sat in the back of the class because I'm a good student of her. My plan was each day of class to move one row closer to her so she didn't notice. She did, by the way. Coincidentally, we were grouped into a study team together, and this is where I made my move. By God's goodness, it all worked out and we started to date. We dated for about a year and a half until we arrived at this phase. This is like the next level kind of stage. Do we get married? This is the question of the hour. And at the time, I had this conviction that I would not talk about marriage or say the words, "I love you," until I proposed. So she's kind of left wondering, like, what are we doing? Where are we going? This whole time that we're dating, all the way up until if I propose to her. So some of you might be thinking, like, how could you, do you even have a heart? Okay, it's a conviction I had, all right? Leave me alone. But this question was in her mind, like, are you committed? Like, are we, is this gonna happen? Because she's banking on her future with me, and she doesn't know if it's gonna be with me. So there's tears, there's uncertainty. She had all these meltdowns, and she just wanted to know if I'm committed to her. You know, ladies, relax. Ultimately, I put a ring on it. And you know what I know is to be true is some of you out there are with me, you realize commitment can be like super scary. I wanna talk to you about a struggle that has existed along those lines for a long time with believers, and this has nothing to do with relationships and boyfriends and girlfriends. It's this question of a commitment that we can make to the church. And before you like instantly start to gloss over or check out, like, hang with me. So I believe there's a problem. I believe that there is a kind of a dating that's going on in the church. I know that sounds weird, but hang with me. You know, if the church doesn't meet all our needs, sometimes we can break up with it. Or if the church doesn't entertain us, we move on. Or if the church doesn't do exactly as we want the church to do and what we want the church to be about, we're out. And I've seen this over the course of decades with hundreds, if not thousands of people close to me, friends and students, over and over again, who ultimately kind of move on from the church. And church becomes less of a priority, and eventually, because they're connected, so does Jesus. So what's the problem? Well, Jesus' plan, as seen in Scripture, is for believers to remain in community until he comes back. Like, that's the truth. I want you to look at the book of Romans. We talked about the book of Romans last week if you'd missed our message, but back into the book of Romans again. This is the author Paul writing to Christians in Romans chapter 12, verse 9. He says, love must be sincere. He's like, hey, love's gotta be real. It can't be hypocritical. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. And then in verse 10, he says, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. And it says to share with the Lord's people who are in need and to practice hospitality. Well, what did all of that mean? For the believers, there is this togetherness as a part of faith. Every idea in this passage, and in most of the New Testament, by the way, describes our faith as a together thing as opposed to a solo thing. So why does it matter that we believe together versus alone? Well, practically speaking, there's a couple things that come to mind. Number one, the devil loves to attack those who try to go at their faith by themselves, and he's usually effective, by the way. Secondly, God's light shines brighter when we're collectively following him with one another. And then thirdly, this is just basic. Hey, we're stronger when we're together. That concept of synergy, when you've got multiple people, multiple forces working together, you're stronger than you would be by yourselves. So hear me out. So I'm not talking about having a commitment to a pastor or a style of church or even to this church. I'm talking about making a commitment to a group of people, a community of people, and deciding to follow Jesus together. Here's what I know. I'm gonna say this real slowly. The less devoted we are to church, the easier it becomes to drift in our faith. I think it's a reality. And why do so many of us in the world date the church as opposed to kind of using what this word described as devoted? Why is it that so many people are dating the church rather than be devoted to it? I think simply put, it's just easier. So we say, I'll just follow Jesus on my own terms. I'll read the Bible alone. I'll go to my Christian club on campus. I'll keep praying. I'll be a good person. I'll do the things that the Bible described. But those avenues can be a little deceptive. And we should do those things, they're important. But those should never be a replacement for the collective community that we have, this commitment to a body of believers. So I want you to catch this. The concept of believer in Jesus, living that out apart from the church, actually doesn't exist in the New Testament. We know from studying the New Testament that the church was established by Jesus as the primary means to amplify his message of hope and restoration to this world. It's the central agent of love and redemption. Jesus himself said that hell can't stop it. He died for it, called it his bride, and every single apostle spent their lives, most to death, making sure this thing called the church continues. But hang on, I get it. Sometimes the church can be wacky, all right? Sometimes the church can be annoying. Sometimes church people can be hypocritical and obnoxious and petty and opposite from the way that Jesus modeled life. Sometimes the church can feel irrelevant. Sometimes it's hard to feel as though you're even wanted or needed inside of the church. Nonetheless, he has chosen the body of believers to be the ambassadors of action to a broken world. We are the tangible expression of God's love in this city. We're his hands and feet. And somehow, crazy as it sounds, in some way, he's gonna use us to turn this world upside down and bring a new world to this place. And he's championing the church for this divine cause. So your connection to the church is one of the biggest contributors to your connection to Jesus and your ability to live out God's call for your life. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Have you found yourself kind of questioning your loyalty to the church based on whether friends are participating with you? I know that's tough. You see the church as a place only to connect with friends, but not necessarily a place to connect and be obedient to God. Do you decide whether you're going to be involved with the church each week based on, like, if you've got a large homework load, your work schedule, or if you even feel like going? I want you to listen to this. Dating leads to drifting, like in the church. When we date the church, eventually we start to drift from our commitments and our relationships with the people inside of the church. When we just dabble in church, we effectively stunt our spiritual growth. I'll say it this way. If church never becomes a devotion we keep ourselves from growth. I believe the type of relationship that we have to have with Christ and the church is from Romans 12, verse 10, be devoted. It's a devoted one. Devotion means this. You stay when the road is rough. You stay when you don't like the music. You stay when you don't care for the message or the style in which the message is shared. You stay when your needs aren't being met. You stay when there's friend drama. You stay when your boyfriend or girlfriend dumps you and they show up every week to church, re-breaking your heart. You stay when it's unpopular and it's uncomfortable. And you stay when everyone and everything tells you that church is pointless. You stay. So the question I'll leave you with is this: are you dating the church, or are you devoted to Jesus' church?